So in this particular example, we're entering a temperature, and we're entering a character to say whether you entered a Fahrenheit temperature or Celsius temperature. If they entered an F for Fahrenheit, then you're going to do a conversion from Fahrenheit to Celsius. If they did not enter an F, you're going to come down here and do Celsius to Fahrenheit. Yes, but I remember we did this problem, because what did we talk about were some of the issues? How could we improve this problem, the solution? Add the lowercase f. And the way to add that would be to say, if units equals f, and then what would I say? Or, and what would the second condition say? Units equals lowercase f, okay? That means if they typed f, then everything would come here. Here. And if they didn't type f, everything would come here. So that meant if they typed z, we would come here. Okay, so now we want to sort of fix that issue. How do we get around the issue? It's not always just f, or, we want to be able to put another condition in here to check for c. So how would we go about checking to see if they entered a c? Let's do the, let's take this. And we'll fix it in the actual compiler. How about that? Okay, so let me fix what I've said. This goes away. So we have temperature, which is a float. We have the converted temperature, which is a new float. And we have units, which is a char. Okay, they're going to enter an F or a C. Now we're going to fix this guy, so we're going to say, or units double equals lowercase f. And then we need one big set of parentheses around it. That's just a C rule. And then we're going to do the conversion here. Okay? And then we want to take care of the scenario. How do we fix the issue? Okay, well, we could, but we generally don't want to do that. Generally, we always, because the problem with doing two ifs is how many tests will we always do? Two. And in the case of an if-else, what's the least amount of tests we can do? I'm going to explain this again in a second. One. So it's less efficient to do two ifs, okay? So hold that thought, okay, because I'm going to talk about that. But how could I fix this? Okay, so let's say we're going to say else if, I'm going to just copy and paste this. And we're going to check here for C, right? Okay, and then I want to add, what about if they don't enter F or C? Well, I could just ignore it, or I could add an else here that says that it's an error. Now, there's really no such thing as an else if. That's not considered a statement. All we're really doing is an if inside of an else that we moved up. So I'm going to show you that in a second. But does everybody see how this works? Except I need to change the, did I do the wrong? Oh, no, that's right. Okay, so this is all, and this won't run because I copied and pasted, which I told you should never do because of your, it always gives you weird characters. Okay, so that's how that would work. Whoops, didn't mean to get rid of the, okay. So let's go back to the slides. Okay, so now inside the else, we can put anything, okay? So this is an example of the way that I took care of the overtime. And I'm going to skip this and come back to it. Now, let's look at this example. I'm going to come back to the overtime because I want you guys to work through that. So we did the scenario where we did apples and oranges. Remember we did that? That was one, I think, the thing that we left off of. A lot of times it takes care of a greater than or less than, but we need a third scenario. So here's one way of doing it. So does everybody see how I would write the code if I wanted to print positive or negative? So if I was going to write the code, let's just do it in the compiler. If I was going to write the code to print whether input a number and I want to say if the number's positive, print, if it's, what would I say for the number to be positive? When's the number positive? Greater than 0. Thank you. Okay, else okay, so what about 0? Well, 0 is, I think, usually considered a positive number, but let's say we want to print whether the number is positive, negative, or 0. How would we go about doing that? So let's say that we make this an if. Okay. So what did I do in order to take the three case scenario? I put an if-else as my statement inside the else. Is that legal? Is an if-else a statement? Say yes. Yes, an if-else is a statement. So this is totally legal. But I don't like this. I don't think this is pretty. Because really, if I enter a number, isn't it either going to be positive, negative, or 0? Isn't that really a three-way test? And isn't this kind of goofy the way the 1 is like inside a little bit? So, okay? So I would like this to clearly show that it's a three-way test. So what I'm going to ask you is, what is separating this and this? White space. And what did we say about white space? Now, isn't that prettier? The reason I show you this example is there's really not an else if. There's not a separate keyword for else if. What we're allowed to do is put an if inside of an else. But since there's nothing separating it but white space, this is a nice, pretty way of setting up multiple scenarios. Okay? Now, could all these guys be compound statements in here? Sure, of course. This could be a compound statement. I could put multiple statements in here, etc. Okay? So if we look at this example right here, the only difference between the right and the left is white space. Okay? All right. We're going to come back to all this because, okay. Now this gets to Jared's question. Okay? Now, in this particular example, I have movie charges. So let's say that if you're less than 16, you pay $7. If you're between 16 and 65, you pay $10. If you're greater than 65, you pay $5. Okay? So everybody take a look at this. So one way I did this, on the left-hand side, I did 3 if statements. Okay? On the right-hand side, I rewrote the same thing, but this time I used an else if. Okay? Does everybody understand by looking at this what's happening? Okay. So now, can anybody tell me why the right-hand side is better than the left-hand side? Tyler. Yes, Tyler said it's more efficient, and that's correct. So let's look at the question here. What is the most amount of tests that you would do on this side? What's the most amount of tests you would do on this side? 3. What's the most amount of tests you would do on that side? 3. What's the least amount of tests you would do on this side? 3. What's the least amount of tests you would do on this side? 1. Why 1? When would you ever do 1? Put your phones away, put your computers away, and pay attention, for God's friggin' sake. Go ahead. Yeah, when would you do 1? Right. So if age is less than 16, it's true and we're out. Does that answer your question, Jared? Okay. So the if-else is always more efficient than a straight if logic. Okay? And that's why we do it. And that's why if you turn in a solution or on a test, you did all ifs, you would lose a point because that's not the best way to write the code. Would it work? Yes, but that's not the best way to do the code.